Good morning, everybody. This is Lancaster Woodturners Coffee Hour number 140. My name is John Kelsey. I'll be your moderator this morning. It's 10 o'clock and it's February 23rd. I am encouraging people who have not shown before and who are new to this to show work and come up and introduce yourself. And I just got a text from Judy Stone asking, do I have the picture she sent me 10 days ago? No, Judy, I'm afraid I don't. I forgot. They're probably in another computer. It's sorry about that. I do my best to keep up on the stuff people send me, but sometimes I just don't get it all. And it's a conundrum whether you learn to do share screen yourself and show from your own screen, or whether you send it to me to show. Both are, as we can see, pretty erratic, but we do our best. So let me see. It's let me raise hand as usual if you want to talk and show stuff. I do have some stuff myself, but I'll hold on till later in the hour. And I see Mike Peace with his hand up. Before I go to Mike, I should say about meetings. The Lancaster Club meeting is the first Tuesday in March, which I believe is the 7th, and then the Saturday after that will be the next open shop, 9 to noon at our space in New Holland. The club meeting, of course, is a hybrid meeting, and we do have a new team working all the AV gear, and they're getting good at it. They've been working at it pretty hard. I don't think we'll have the kind of audio problems or like that we had last week. One of the team members is on screen this morning. I see John Ziegler. I don't see Peter Caddick here. Peter Caddick is the other guy who's picked up the ball here. Okay, I'm going to go to Mike Peace. But before I do, Mike, I want to ask you, would you talk about your project that you're doing with Raffin and those other two guys too? We'd like to keep getting caught up on that.
Yeah, Richard Raffin has been communicating by email with Thomas Tomasek, a would-be professional. I say would-be. I mean, he's been working on being a professional woodturner in Croatia, and Richard's been giving him advice by email. So Thomas Slav suggested this project this collaborative video where they'd each do the same project and post it on their respective channels. And then he mentioned Sam Angelo, and then Richard Raffin mentioned my name. So we're calling it Four Ways, and our first video will come out on March 1st. And I suspect we will probably be doing, and then we're scheduling another one for April 1st. And I guess we'll probably be doing this monthly until Richard gets tired of it.
Can we see what you've been working on?
No, it's a secret until we have the big reveal. But what I've been working on, this is Barry had this carving stand and I had to make one. So here's my carving stand. He used a 1-inch bolt or post. I used
hold it up a little higher. Hold it up a little higher so we can see it, and hold it still. Yeah, good.
So it articulates, it goes in the banjo. You can spin this. I used a 3/4 10 bolt because I already had an adapter that I'd used in years past for a threading jig. So the 3/4 inch bolt I had on hand, I bought some real cheap. And then it's got a 1 to 1 1/4 adapter, so I can hold, either size chuck depending on where the project was made. These adapters are real inexpensive. This one's from Penn State. They sell this one going from a 1 inch to a 1 1/4, but you also get this as a freebie with some chuck sets, such as the collet chuck I bought from Craft Supply. It happens to come with this 1 inch, so that was a nice accessory. The other item I turned was this salt shaker, and I turned it out of the same piece of wood that I turned a pepper mill about 3 years ago, and my wife said, I need a salt shaker. So I was fortunate enough to be able to find this matching piece of wood.
Very nice.
That's all I got.
What did you finish that with, Mike?
I use Minwax antique oil for almost everything. This was probably 4 coats.
And the inside also? I was wondering about the salt.
No, Richard Raffin, where I turned my first one based on plans he had in a book, he does not finish the inside. He just he doesn't sand it. He doesn't put any finish. He just kind of scrubs it a little bit with a toothbrush. So that's all I did.
Thank you, sir.
Mike, how thick is? Mike, how
After
thick
carving
is the
stand,
lid?
How thick is
Barry.
what?
How thick is the lid in the area of the perforation that the salt comes out of?
Probably fairly thick. I would say at
Okay.
least 3/8 of an inch.
And the,
No, it's not 3/8. It's probably closer to yeah, a little bit more than a quarter. Well,
What's
you
the
went
whole
in-
diameter?
The whole diameter, as I recall, was 5/32. That's what you can do is check a couple of salt shakers you like, and then try different bits. But that was one that I think Richard specified in one of his project books.
That go for pepper too?
No, pepper is smaller. I don't remember what size it is for pepper.
can I go back to your carving work holding thing, the thing you made there? Yeah. The nut to the bottom there that holds the, how does that really hold securely enough so that you can bang on that thing?
It's too early to tell. Mine is a little lighter than Barry's. Barry used I think a 3/4 inch bolt. The one I had on hand wasn't long enough, so I bought a 1/2 inch. I feel like with these washers, you can crank down pretty tight, I think. If it slips a little bit, I'll probably put a little piece of sandpaper in there, but I think so. I'm not planning on doing a lot of banging. Most of my carving is probably going to be power carving, but I got a feeling this would hold it pretty well.
Okay, any more questions for Mike? Okay, thank you very much, Mike. I'm going to go to Kai. I know Kai's got a show he wants to do, and I want to get that in. So Kai, would you like to do your show?
Yes, I will start the PowerPoint or share the PowerPoint with you.
This is a follow-up on sandblasting from the discussion we had last week.
Yeah, there were some questions about the sandblasting cabinet, and I had shown that maybe a year ago or 1.5 years ago. So I will keep the part I have already shown short. Also, it's a bit technical. Maybe not everyone is interested in that. Yeah, first a little explanation. When you buy these sandblasting cabinets in DIY shops, they normally work on the suction blasting technology. That means the blasting medium is sucked out of a container to the gun, where it is mixed with the air, and then a jet of air sandblasting medium mixture comes out of the gun. The drawback of this system is that a lot of energy that you put into the compressed air is lost, because this power is needed for the suction process that takes the medium to the gun. There is another principle. It's called pressure blasting, and here the blasting medium is mixed with air inside a pressure vessel, and then this air medium mix travels through a hose to the nozzle, and this system works with small compressors, compressors that you normally find in a DIY workshop, and the airflow or the volume flow that you need is between 90 and 150 liters per minute, which is 3.18 to 5.3 cubic feet per minute. So the compressor doesn't need to be that big, and that was the main reason for me to want a system like this. Here in the drawing, you can see it again. Oh, can I use my mouse here? Yeah. So that's the pressure vessel with the sand in there, and then there's some air going into the vessel up here to kind of keep the sand moving, and the main airstream is down here. The air or the, yeah, mostly sand runs down here, is mixed with the air and then blown through the hose to the nozzle. And everything is controlled via a foot pedal that controls the amount of air. So that's what my system looks like. The pressure vessel, then some connectors. It's all standard components, so nothing special. Meanwhile, after building the system about 1.5 years ago, I found out it would have been better to have a pressure vessel that is higher and thinner, because then the sand runs down, or it moves down to here where it is mixed with the air more readily. I tried to overcome that by building a tiltable platform, and so I can lift the box with a pressure vessel inside a little bit and then bang it down again, so the sand moves a little bit towards the bottom. At least it does help a little bit, but it's not very good. I had to build this platform anyway, because that is my box from a DIY store. I think they are mass produced in China, and you get them in the United States as well, similar looking cabinets.
That would be a sandblasting cabinet. That would be sold as a sandblasting cabinet, I think.
Yeah, sandblasting cabinet. Yeah, okay. Right. So because the inlet was already there, or the hole for the inlet was already there, I used it, and so I had to lift my box with the pressure vessel a little bit up. Right. So here you can see the connection between the box with the pressure vessel and the sandblasting cabinet. And I made some additions. Here I added a wooden board with a connector, so I can connect a hose to the cabinet to be able to suck away the dust that is created during the sandblasting process. If there is too much dust in the cabinet, visibility is really bad and you don't see what you're doing there. So that is an addition I made. Then with my cabinet, which is a few years old, there was just one fluorescent light bulb at the top here, and I took that out and added 4 LED lights, 4 12-volt LED lights, which makes it a lot brighter inside the box, and that works rather fine. Another problem is with these cabinets that the sandblasting medium is swirling around in the cabinet, and it also blasts the acrylic sheet or acrylic glass that is used to cover the top of the sandblasting cabinet, so that you can look inside during the sandblasting process. And for this reason, there is a protective film on the inside that has got or is adhesive at the circumference, and then you just put it to the cabinet. These protective films are rather expensive, and it's difficult to peel off the adhesive sometimes. It tends to stick to the acrylic glass. So what I did, I made a wooden frame and put magnets into it. So John, that's another magnet idea for you if you ever have a sandblasting cabinet. And then I use sheets. In Germany, they are called overhead projector transparencies. They are not used anymore that much because of PowerPoint and projectors that are fixed to the ceiling. But in the old days at school, we had these, and I have quite a supply of these transparencies left over. So they have A4 size. I put 2 together, use sellotape to connect them, use also sellotape to connect them to the frame so that it doesn't fall out. And then I put it on the inside of my lid, and then on the outside I have strips with magnets as well, and I put them around on the outside, and that holds the protective film on the inside nicely in place. On the inside, it's one solid frame. On the outside, I decided to make the frame up of 4 pieces because I thought it might be difficult to lift the frame on the outside when I want to remove it, because these magnets are rather strong. And then by just removing one piece at a time, it's easy to do that. Okay. And also I added, I think it's called a light shade, so just a frame here on the outside of the lid, so that I'm not blinded by the light that my 4 LED lights produce. Okay, and I put the whole thing onto a trolley so I can move it around in the workshop. The trolley was already there. It's got rather big wheels, so I have to stand on a wooden block. I'm quite short, so that my hands have the right working height on the cabinet. Maybe I come up with a better thing than this wooden block here, especially because of the foot pedal, which is difficult to operate at the moment. Yeah, and I made some wooden bits so that the cabinet doesn't move on this trolley. Yeah, that's the foot pedal for airflow control, and that's the filter for the dust that I suck out of the blasting cabinet. I got a filter from the engine of a combine harvester. A friend of mine works in a farm workshop, so she got that for me, and I built a wooden box to put it in. It's a bit maybe oversized for that purpose, but it works. And so the airflow is from here to through the filter and to an old household vacuum cleaner. I tried my shop vacuum as first, but even at the lowest setting, it has too much airflow, and it doesn't only suck the dust out of the cabinet, but also a lot of the sandblasting medium as well, which I don't like. So,
Kai, let me stop you for a second. That's an awfully complicated, or I would not complicated, but there's a lot to that. You must have a big investment in this. I didn't realize you did anywhere near as much sandblasting to warrant this.
You're right. I like playing around with technical ideas. So I think I won't use it as much as it needs to be used concerning all the work.
So the fun for you is in the designing and making the setup as much as in using it. Am I right?
Yeah, you're right. So maybe it's,
all right. You're like Barry with his jigs.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. It's a bit like Barry and the spiraling chicks. Yeah. But I plan to do some more sandblasting in future. The problem is a little bit that my workshop isn't that big, and I have to move things around because before I can use the sandblasting cabinet. So that's why I haven't used it so much so far. But now, as it is on wheels, I can push it into a corner. Maybe it's going to be used more often. So if there are more projects using sandblasting, I will show them. Okay. So someone asked about the sandblasting media I use, and it's called in Germany Glasgranulat. I think glass granulate, is that the American term or English term for it? Might be. That's what my dictionary told me. The 200 to 300 means 200 to 300 micrometer size. That is 0.2 to 0.3 millimeters, or in fraction of inches, 0.08 to 0.12 inches. So it's a rather fine stuff. And here you can see it. Looks a bit like salt. In this case, it's already dirty because that's has been used, and there are some pieces of wood and maybe also of the rubber hose, because it kind of works on the inside of the rubber hose that I use as well. in there, and I've got a sieve, so I get out the pieces that can be sieved out of the media, and then I use it again. You can use it up to 10 times.
So you go through a dust collector then to get rid of the fractured glass?
It goes through the sandblasting media stays inside the box. It's got a hole on the underside. I can pull a plug and I can let it kind of run out, and then I fill it.
The dust that comes out.
Sorry?
Dust comes out, the particles stay behind.
Yeah, the dust is sucked out through this hose. The sandblasting media, at least most of it, stays inside the box at the bottom of the box and collects there, and then I can get it out again and reuse it. And the dust collects in here, so that's wood dust and stuff like that, and a bit of the sandblasting media. So I try to reclaim some of it as well, which collects at the bottom of the filter box here. And
but my question comes out, Kai, was the if you're using glass beads as your sandblasting media, do they break apart while you're blasting, or they stay pretty? Are they pretty solid because you're just doing wood or whatever?
I think they would stay solid, but I don't use beads at the moment. It's more kind of shredded glass or very, very fine glass like sand, but it's not like pearls. It's not round. It's got
okay. I understand. Ich verstehe, danke.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kai,
Yeah.
wait a minute. I got into this through a process that took years. Anyway, I become very familiar with respirators. There is no filter made that will take out sandblasting particles. You have got to have a remote air supply. And the biggest class action suit ever brought against respirator companies was because of sandblasting, especially in Texas. And if you notice, when they sandblast bridges and things, those guys are in suits with helmets and they have a remote air supply. If you're doing this in your shop, I have no idea how much you do or whatever, but that stuff will go right through the best respirator ever made. Okay, there is no filter will take that out.
Okay, so you say even if I go through my go back here. Oh, sorry.
If you go through two of them, it will not work.
Yeah, even if I go through this and
Yes.
then in the vacuum there are two filters as well.
It will not work.
So I still blow out some of the very fine dust into the workshop.
Talk to some professional if you want further, but I can guarantee you that will not take it out. The fine stuff is in the air, and if you're in your shop, if you're out in the backyard, it probably is fine. But if you're in your shop, I think you should know that.
Okay.
I've been doing open air sandblasting since not open air. I've been sandblasting since 1995. I do granite tiles. I carve photos into granite tiles. And here in Canada, the regulations state that if you're doing open air blasting, you wear a pressurized helmet suit and you have to supply air from 50 feet away that's filtered. So you're
That's right.
getting fresh air from a remote source. But in my shop, I have a professional cabinet with the vacuums and filters and everything. And Kai, the one thing that you may want to consider is water air filtration for your air intake or for your compressor. Moisture gets into the grit and it starts to clump. So that's just something. But yes, silicosis is very deadly. And 100 years ago, but when sandblasting was invented, the life expectancy of a sandblaster was 3 to 10 years. So that's why I raised my hand. I wanted to make sure you're aware of the dangers of sandblasting. So when I'm sandblasting, even though I have the cabinet, I wear a full face mask, ear protectors, because I get dust in my ears and you can feel it. You can't see it, but you can feel it. And I wear a P100 dust mask, even though I'm using a cabinet. And I sealed my cabinet completely with metal foil duct tape before I ever used it. And when I do outside air blasting, well, then you have to have the proper way of protecting yourself outside too. So don't blast open air. It'll kill you.
Even a
Okay.
P100 will not stop it.
I know, but
It will not stop it. You have to have a remote air supply from
Yeah.
50,
Okay.
like you say, 50 feet away. I
I think we
think
got the point. Let's go. Kai, have you got more slides?
I think just one more. Okay. Someone asked about the nozzle size. It's 2 millimeters or 0.08 inches that I use. The pressure is between 3 and 6 bar, which is 43 to 87 psi in your country. And then one last word about what I showed last time. I forgot to mention the wood I used. That was the object I did. The wood is sequoia, and that is interesting for sandblasting, at least, or for making these things, because the early wood growth leaves quite soft wood, and then the late wood is this harder ring here, or this harder bit of wood. And then when
Douglas
you
fir
sandblast,
would be
sorry,
Douglas fir would be very similar.
yeah.
Douglas
then when
fir would be very similar. Yeah.
sandblasting, the softer wood goes more easily, and then you get this effect here that you can see in the photo. And that's the cone that goes with the sequoia. These are the seeds. They came out of a cone that I had collected. I saw them in California, the really high sequoia trees, and admired them. In Germany, they get up to 130 feet high and a maximum diameter of around 8.5 feet. So that's just what I wanted to add about the sequoia wood. Okay, thank you. That's it.
Okay, what I'm taking from that is that sandblasting is more dangerous than I thought. I want to appreciate you guys who have educated us on the risks of breathing that kind of dust. Not a good idea.
Okay, I'll be more careful in future, and at least wear my powered respirator when I clean out the filters and stuff like that, to make sure I don't breathe in anything. Oh,
I wonder if one
as
of the
little as
things you
possible.
could do is move your filter extract cabinet outside so that you actually vent that to another space. Clearly, this is not my area of expertise, but it seems like if the filter won't stop it, then at least if you can throw it outside, your exposure should be much less. But
Yeah, have the vacuum cleaner outside. That's a good idea. Have the vacuum cleaner
Yeah.
outside that sucks out the dust.
and the
Then
filter
if you're going to get your air from outside through your respirator, you got to have the hose going somewhere else for that.
Yeah.
just so you're aware, there's two ways you can do it. You can put your vacuum system in its own separate compartment or cabinet that's fully sealed, or you can vent it outside. And manufacturers often recommend mounting the vacuum outside, because even the vacuum that I have that's commercial and it's got the filters on it, I still get particles coming through. So my cabinet is in a separate compartment that's fully sealed, and none of the blasting material comes through there. And the grit does get into the bearings and will burn your bearings out. So it's 100%.
yeah, that's probably the best, because then you don't get the dust in your shop and bearings and everything else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
You're welcome.
thanks
be careful.
everyone. Judy Stone, you've been wanting to show pictures for a couple of weeks. Are you ready with them? You're muted. There you are.
I don't have pictures. Mark went down and got the object for me, the lidded box. So the rabbi in Lancaster, Jack Paskoff, who some of you may know from Shara Shemayim, issued a challenge for people to make a object using whatever media they use to make an object with some sort of Jewish theme. And since I'd made him a dreidel and a dreidel box before, I rummaged around to think what I could make, and came up with the idea of a Havdalah box. And Havdalah is a ceremony on Saturday nights where you put spices in a box, you burn a candle, you put spices in a box, and it's usually made of silver. And you smell it with the idea that the sweetness brings in the transition to the work day. So I made this box out of curly maple and mahogany, and tried my hand at pyrography, which I need more practice at. And Mark had a piece of ebony that I used for the finial. But what I wanted to ask you all about is I had a lot of trouble turning the inside of this, and thought I was going to kill myself getting under here with a hook nose scraper, and I'm turning it the wrong way. Movements are backwards here. So it popped off the lathe a couple of times, and I just wondered if you all had any suggestions about that. Despite the fact that it's thicker, I'm pretty happy with how it came out overall. So
My own suggestion is sharpen the scraper off and take light cuts and get a tool rest right in there.
One tool that I've used for doing those calabash style bowls is Robert Sorby has a scraper tool where you can put different bits on it, and there's a bit that has a round nose on it, and it's adjustable on the angle, and because you're not going in very deep, it's very stable. But you can change the angle of this little kind of cutter that's bolted onto it, and you can take really light cuts. And I found that to be my best friend when I first tried to do a calabash bowl. I tried one of those tools and I immediately went and bought one, because it just made that job getting underneath the lip and nice and smooth in the transition so much easier. And it was a tool by Robert Sorby, and it has a couple of different bits that you can bolt onto it. And
you know what
the
it's
beauty of
called?
it was you could adjust them. I'll have to find out. I'll take a look. I'll put it in the post, or when I find it, I'll let you know.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
One of the things I've run into is getting a fairly short handled scraper, so that when you're introducing it into underneath the lip, you almost have the tool coming in from the back side of the lathe. So you're trying to get it straight on. If you try and put it sideways, there's a real big chance of a catch. It actually will twist in your hand, and that hurts. I'm just saying from experience. So I've always tried to make sure that I'm trying to go in as straight into the cut as possible, even though it's undercut. You know, if you can still get your tool around so that it's not as seriously in a twist mode as if you put it straight into the bottom.
That's one of the reasons I have my lathe in the middle of the room, so I can walk to the other side for exactly that reason. So I'm not reaching out all craned over the lathe, but I'm on the other side, and I can come into there with us straight into that sort of a place rather than contorting myself.
You can turn from the back side of the lathe?
Well, you're not turning from the back side of the lathe.
I'm not changing the direction of the lathe. I'm just changing where I am in order to reach under the lip there where you're trying to cut the wood away.
Also, the scraper should be a round nose scraper. Often negative rake will help beginners, especially with this, but you always want to keep the radius you're cutting inside bigger than the radius of the scraper, so that you're not taking very much off. It's easy as you come down the inside to create a groove really in here, and you start using the entire radius and you lose control. So in some ways, the smaller the radius of the scraper, the better.
Mm-hmm. May I add something to Ernie's comment? I've got a scraper here. Try to show it in the camera.
Hold it still.
Yeah, turn it around. Oh, no, sorry. Oh, find it right. So the point Ernie is making, this radius here.
You have to hold it still in front of your chin. We don't see it.
Okay.
Get it over more. Yeah, there, that's better.
So this radius here needs to be smaller than the radius you want to turn inside your hollow form. if the contact area to the wood gets too big, it's difficult to control. So you want a rather small contact area to the wood, just in one point here maybe, and then rather keep it moving inside your container while you turn, so that you get a nice cut. But if there's too much contact area, you run into trouble. Is that the point, Ernie?
Absolutely, exactly.
Thank
Anybody
you for your
else?
suggestions.
Judy, I use cup cutters, and you can get them from various manufacturers. They come with very small ones, and they work great for that because you can stick them back in, and yeah, but they're small. I learned the hard way not to put a big one on. I obviously thought I needed a big one, but oh boy, that was a learning experience. So I'm back to the smaller ones to do that kind of cut. So.
Yeah, thank you all.
And Tim, to your point, this is one of those cases where the little cup carbide scrapers really work nicely because of how clean a cut they can make on that little section.
Yeah, that's
and once you've got the trick, Judy, and once you've got it down to a science, you can do a demonstration for the rest of us.
Don't follow him. He's setting you up.
The first time you do it, it just hurts. The second time, oh my God.
You know the expression, you should live so long?
All right. Thank you very much,
Thanks.
Judy. And did you have another piece you wanted to show?
No, that was it.
Okay. Mike Brazo.
Yeah, good morning. Last week I mentioned, I don't know how it came up, but a treadle lathe that was sold in the, I think in the 1950s, and actually as an exercise tool. So Mike P suggested I throw something up this week. So I'll do a share screen. It's actually known as the Larvik lathe. I became aware of it. There was one for sale east of Toronto about 15 years ago, and it somehow sunk in my mind. And it has a large flywheel on the left-hand side of the treadle portion. Let me go back here. Oh, sorry, I wanted to show you the ice that we were getting yesterday in this crazy storm. My son says it might be called gravel. He has a friend that's a meteorologist at the Weather Network. But you can see some perfectly shaped ice crystals. They're maybe 2 to 3 millimeters in size. I've got to get back to the lathe here. So it looks like very much like a conventional lathe, cast iron weighs. I don't know what the spindle size was. It was principally a spindle lathe, I believe.
Does it go both directions? Can you treadle that so it goes in one direction?
Clue, John. I did put a posting up in the chat from it's a full description of it. So if you go there, you can actually see the lathe described. Now, I just thought of something as I was preparing to do this. Let me stop the share.
Let me say while he's doing that, that Rich Starr designed a treadle lathe using bicycle freewheel mechanisms for kids, so they can go tromp, 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 and the lathe goes very rapidly in one direction. I can find drawings for that that I can probably post.
A completely separate topic. I don't know how many of you might have heard that John Jordan is in really dire condition. He has a lung infection. You remember he had a liver transplant a couple of years ago, so he's totally immune compromised. And his wife was posting on Facebook on Tuesday, I think, and Pat Miller posted it at the World of Woodturners. He's under an induced coma in order to treat this infection. I'll put the word up in the chat, and if you Google it, it's a fungus that apparently in the early days of AIDS, with all of the people that were immune compromised with AIDS, it was a problem. It's a soil fungus, but also found in wood. And I immediately thought of one of our members that I had taught in some spindle turning in the summer of 21, who had had a kidney transplant in March of 21. and called him yesterday, and he was telling me that he taught a neighbor who is also immune compromised wood turning, and the fellow now has some fungal infections in other parts of his body that the doctor feels could be related to wood. So it's something I had never run across in the last 20 years of, activity on the various forums. But obviously, we're all aware of the need for dust protection, respirators, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But this is really very serious.
So are you saying that John Jordan's lung thing is from the wood that he's worked with all these years?
We don't know, but if you Google this word, you'll see, you do a couple of searches, you'll find out that it is related to found in soils and also found in wood. It doesn't say what kind of wood. I would have to assume it's wood that's moist and John turns out he's a green wood turner, but I don't think he's a junk wood turner. He tends to work with, good stuff.
Yeah.
I know he's the one that came up with the saying that life's too short to turn shitty wood.
Can I say something here? I watched a demonstration by Siri Robinson, who's got a PhD in spalting.
Yeah.
And she addressed that topic. What she says is wood dust, as we know, can cause cancer. It's only that there's so many spores in the air we breathe all the time. The body can handle it. She says there is no extra risk from turning spalted wood unless possibly you are immunocompromised. But a healthy body would have no more problem with turning spalted wood than you would going outside and breathing all the millions of spores in the air.
Yeah.
But the
one thing that happened to me, I had to go to the ear doctor. I had ear problems, and they dug out walnut dust out of my ear. And he suspected that the infection probably came from the walnut. Now, whether it allowed it to build up with moisture and cause it, but something. So I use hearing protection now whenever I turn, whenever I sand, especially.
Also, walnut it does have some poisonous effect. I've had two students over the years who got quite sick turning walnut, so I never allow it in a class. But the more tropical a wood is, the more likely it is to be poisonous to breathe, because the tree has naturally selected to ward off insect attack.
The other thing it could have been is mold. Like mold does cause medical conditions where the fungus from spalting and such is not necessarily a mold. It isn't a mold. Mold is a little different than the actual spawn. So that could have been a cause too, I guess.
There's one thing that hasn't been mentioned to my knowledge, and I had a 6 weeks OSHA course because I was a safety officer in a lab for about 200 people, and that's smoking. When you smoke, you destroy these little silica inside the lungs that can normally pull that stuff up and get rid of it, because evolutionary wise, we're built to run through the woods and inhale all kinds of stuff, but the smoking destroys those little cilia, and it's a very, very rate of increase when you have smoked and when you will get a lung infection. So that's just something that all of us should keep in mind. We had a lady last night at our local turning club. She sells a product called Dust Be Gone, and it advertises, I think it's 0.3 micron. I don't know how you would validate that without a lengthy test, but all of us should be aware of that. Thanks.
I have a Dust Be Gone mask, and I would highly doubt that it's capable of achieving that level.
I have the mask as well, and I cannot
I
get a
bought
good
it
fit.
years ago. I use it occasionally, but there's no way I would say that is a 0.3 micron. No way.
Well, let's hang on a second here. Let's also have a thought for John Jordan, who's been a very good friend to this club and to this to our coffee hour. He's did a marvelous slideshow for us that I can probably pretty sure I can find the link to. And he's appeared at the several times at the Mid-Atlantic Symposium and just done absolutely fabulous demonstrations. He's a very warm guy, and he's always invited people to come down and turn and visit in Tennessee. And I just hope he gets better and gets through this.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Say, John,
Since
I've got,
grabbed-
I just ran out to the shop and picked up my crown tool, or it was actually a crown tool scraper for calabash bowls. And this
Hold it
is what
still.
I've got.
Hold it still. We can't see it when you keep moving it.
Okay.
Okay. And that end piece rotates there with an Allen screw, right? So you can change the angle of it.
That's correct. You can replace the bit. It comes with 3 or 4 different little bits, and there's just an Allen screw, and you can rotate the end of this to match up with the inside of a, if you're trying to do the inside of a bowl underneath, and you're going straight in and like this. So like otherwise you're trying to, your arms are way out and you don't have any strength when you're chicken winging it. This way you can keep your elbow into your body and still move your whole body to get the inside radius. And when I discovered this, I was at a course in Black Forest. I think it was even with Richard Rappin way back when. And he mentioned something about getting a scraper to get the calabash, and there happened to be one on the shelf. I tried it and I bought it immediately because it just made that particular job so much easier.
Thank you for showing that,
That's
Bert.
it.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Most of the tool merchants have some version of that tool. So I know that Sorby has one. I've got a couple of them from different places.
This one was actually crown tool. I thought it was Sorby, but it's actually it was actually a crown tool. And I bought it in Sheffield, England. I mean, it was from Sheffield. It was great. But yes, there's lots of manufacturers that have it. But that little bit is what made all the difference.
Yes.
And Bert, I think the tool you're using could be used in reverse, though, right? On the opposite side. And back to what Judy was saying, if you turn the lathe in reverse, then you can do it on the opposite, cutting on the opposite side of the lathe. And then the handle stays on your side.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of the tool, is that you can take the bit and put it on whichever side you want. And and you can adjust it. So you can do one portion and adjust it a little bit so that you're comfortable with your elbows into your body with the tool all the time, so that you don't have the, if it catches or tries to catch a little bit, if you're chicken winging it, it makes it really difficult. But if you can keep your elbows into your body and have the angle right, and you're absolutely right, turn your lathe in reverse and you could do the opposite side. I've done that as well.
You've also got to get tool rest support. That's the key to it.
What's your hand position? Is it up tight on closer to the blade or back on the handle?
Well, when I'm doing it, I have my one hand at the end of the handle, and this elbow is tucked into my body. And this one here, I just use my fingers on if this is on the tool rest about here. All this hand is doing is kind of guiding. I put my thumb on the tool rest and I can pull this with my fingers just ever so slightly. But the main power is the elbow into my body. And then if I need to go back and forth, I move my whole body, not just my arms.
You've also got to lock the chuck to the spindle. That's worse than a catch.
Yeah, if you're running in reverse, you've got to lock it. I tend not to run in reverse, because I found with this tool to do that, those small boxes calabash, I don't have to. I can be going straight in, adjust the tool, and still use my fingers to pull it into the box, and my body is what's actually holding the tool. The tool rest has to be such that the angle of the tool touching the wood is on center, slightly turned, and then you can rotate it with your hand if you need to. So you're cutting probably just slightly below center, but you have to be level with your tool rest and wherever your body lines up. That's the key.
Can I just make a comment that what you're saying about the rest and your chicken winging it, there's a trade-off, because if you don't have it straight in against your body, I've also hurt my wrist rather badly because the whole tool twisted on a catch. So you may not hurt your elbow, but also be aware that twisting motion gets you right in the wrist if you're not careful. So it's a little bit of a compromise in position on both sides.
I agree. With this tool though, if you're holding it against your body, that twisting action, and because you're only pulling it ever so slightly, it's like petting a cat backwards. You're hardly touching the wood. And because the radius of the bit is small enough, I've actually brought it in from below and then twisted it into the wood. So it's actually just scraping the wood. Yeah, there's a good picture of the various tools that are available.
That's from Bob Mathers. He just was showing
Perfect.
that, and I just spotlighted it. Bob, you want to talk to this for a second? Bob Mathers, are you there? It's probably muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now I can.
Okay. Yeah, the two on the left are Shorby tools. I got those, and I really like doing the hollow forms. I haven't had any of the problems I've been hearing about. I know if you get a
Try and
little
hold the
bit
camera
too-
still. Hold the camera still. Good. Okay.
Okay, if you're too aggressive though, it'll snag on you. I also have some rather large ones for making much smoother pieces. But that round one is really nice for smoothing out the bottom. If you want to take out, really get the wood out, the one on the left works quite well. I just picked up the side scraper there on the right not long ago. And you see the little notch there? That really works well for getting up underneath, I think, like Judy was talking about. But again, you just have to, I think my problems have been sometimes being too aggressive, and then it'll snag. If you just go in slowly, I think that might be the better, sometimes you get in a hurry, and that's not the best. That's not good form.
Your point about the aggression, I think, is the key one, though, and that is that you've got, no matter what stance or hold you have to be extremely gentle going into those curves.
Yeah.
On the inside, you have to stay above the center. If you get below center, when it catches, it goes right into the wood.
And then you've got to work it. Then you've got more work. So yeah, taking your time is probably the best bet.
I'm going to grab the spotlight now, and I'm going to switch to my other cameras, because I've got my whole setup here in my office. I want to go back to the magnet boxes, and I've got a setup here with two cameras looking at this. One of them's looking at me so I can talk to you, and then the other one is looking at my desktop here with these two magnet boxes on it. This is a continuation of a discussion we had a few weeks ago, and the problem was, for Doug, how do I make a box that's going to hold sanding discs? So this was the first prototype here. And this has, the way I made this is these are all identical. There's two ears on it. These are glued on. There's wood there, and then there's magnets there, and there's a magnet underneath that wood actually. And it's hollowed out here, and it's hollowed out here, and it's got they fit on like that. And then there's a lid and it fits on like that. So you could go like that with a box. So I thought that's a pretty good idea. And I imagined that 3-inch sanding discs were actually 3 inches, but of course they're not, as I soon discovered. So I made another one a little bit bigger that'll hold 3-inch sanding discs. And this one I tried only one magnet, and I kind of like the springy action in here. I'm going to do some more exploring with that. It's beyond my turning ability to turn it exact enough to have this just be mechanically perfect. It's just more, it just takes more turning and gluing and all that. But here's what the lid looks like. There, you can see the lid, and it's flat in there. And again, this is a glued on plug with a magnet in it. And same with each layer here. This is also a glued on plug with two magnets in it. The fit here has to be pretty close. This one, I had thought the way to open these would be like this one does. You turn it and open it. But this one, you're more likely to just go like that. And you can see here, this is what happens with sand. This is a standard sanding disc. This is 3 3/8 in here. Still doesn't fit. It has to be even bigger than that. So I put these, drew a triangle on here so I could take it apart and they could get scattered, and I could get them back in the order they are, because this is the order that they work best. They'll go in other orders, but they work best in this order. And this led me to a whole new area of investigation that I'm doing in the shop now to get better at this and get this figured out. But so anyway, this is work in progress. I'm going to give this to Doug. It's probably going to be useful enough for him for his sanding discs. But it's an ongoing investigation, and with using magnets to get closures that are equivalent to threaded closures, and in some ways better, or at least different. So it's lots of fun. So that's my speech for the morning. Let me see, go back to that camera. Yeah. Questions? Comments?
That actually looks great, but you may want to consider some way of marking the grit size on each one.
I'll leave that to Doug. I'm not gonna tell him what grits to be using. But yeah, I thought that he would do that.
For the pieces that you glue on, have you radiused the inside of them somehow?
What I did was I have a spindle sander, so I put this 1-inch spindle on the spindle sander and walked this up to it and sanded until it just almost broke through inside. So I made a radius that the plug would go into. I thought of doing it the other way around.
Yeah.
Pardon?
I was thinking about the other way, that you would have radiused the glued on piece. That's interesting. Thank you.
I could have radiused either one, but I had the spindle that was the size for the glue. In fact, I made the glued on one to match the spindle. So
how does it do with the drop test?
If I drop it on the floor, does it come open? Is that the question?
Yes.
Pulls together. Landed on carpet though. I think if I put it on a cement floor, of course it would come apart.
I'm wondering
But anyway,
if
this is not
double ear would work better for the drop test, because I always drop stuff.
the double ear works much better. The double ear is much harder to make. It's just that many more things to get accurate. And you know, it's just there's a lot of dimensions here that want to be right for this to really work smooth. And it's kind of beyond what I really want to do. I got another idea for how this is going to work that I've got on the lathe now. I'm going to put the magnets in an entirely different orientation. And I'll show that to you when I get it. I consider all these prototypes. These are just investigation. You know, I'm finding out how to, it's new ground. It's fun.
Don't use Bradford pear for anything that's going to hit the ground repeatedly, because it is so brittle. It can snap much easier than most of our other hardwoods.
That's true. This one is cherry, and this one is Bradford pear. So I probably will use something else. I mean, actually, the one I'm making now is in Cocobolo, so it'll behave totally differently. It's also smaller.
Given that these are stacked, why did you find it necessary to use the magnets? Doesn't gravity take care of it, or do you move them around a lot on your workspace?
Well, the original brief was Doug wanted a way to carry discs of sandpaper around to demonstrations in different places. So he wants a sandpaper box that he can just chuck in his tool bag and then park on the lathe bed.
So if you were going to say use it in your own shop, you probably wouldn't have gone to all that effort then?
Oh, I would have anyway, because I'm interested in solving the problem.
Okay.
I find it an interesting problem, and I've been researching how to use magnets in wood turning and other woodworking things for quite a few years now. It's become my
so it was the fun of the chase. Okay.
Absolutely.
I actually use something like that in my own shop anyway, because of the fact that you can put 3 to maybe 5 sanding discs in. You can put the other 150 in the 50 box that you get in is covered someplace, so you don't have to be going through the entire set of discs every time you do a sanding job. You can just refill the discs, so it's actually very, very handy. And then, of course, if you use one disc and you feel it's half used, you can put it back in the box and find exactly where you set it down, as opposed to searching all over the lathe for when you last used it. So.
Well, we're going to find out how in practice it works, because next time I see Doug, I'm going to give that to him now that I'm showing it to you guys. And he'll either find it useful and can use it, or it'll not get used, and I'll ask him why, and we'll figure it out for the next prototype. Barry, I was doing some video with Barry on his jig the other day, and that's what he said too. Everything I make is a prototype, and I realized that's probably true for me too. And I think for quite a few of you.
So what do you do with Doug, I love that expression, half-used sandpaper. How do you decide that?
If there's enough grit on it, I mean, obviously, I use it by just fiddling with my thumbs. I feel a good piece and a bad piece, and you can start feeling if it gets too smooth. So, you know, and the other part is if it's a very quick sanding or something like that, you know.
If you can see the name from both sides, it's chat.
That's a good way of putting it.
I think it was Lyle Jameson who said that why would you want to use dull tools? Get a new piece of sandpaper. I'm not sure who it was, but one of the expert turners put that out there. And sandpaper compared to other tools is cheap.
If it's almost sharp, if it's almost sharp, it'll almost cut.
On that note, kids.
Lyle throws them away. He uses them, throws them right away. So
I agree with him. It's after 11 o'clock. It's been a wonderful hour. Thank you all for your contributions and for the things we've learned today. And we'll see you all next week.
Wood shop. Thank God for wood.